Hey, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
Really happy to be here. Yeah.
Yeah, happy to hear your story and chat a little bit more. Definitely. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
So my name is Xiaoyin Qu.
Yeah.
I'm currently the founder and CEO of Heeyo. We are
Yeah.
an AI interactive tutor and playmate for kids, age 3 to 11. I've been a serial entrepreneur. This is my second venture-backed business. We're backed by OpenAI. My first company was a virtual events company around the world. So we were quite popular during the pandemic until it was not as popular. And then we sold the company last year. I graduated from, I graduated from Pomona College undergrad. And I went to GSB for Stanford. I went to Stanford MBA, but I didn't graduate. I dropped out after a year to start my previous company. I guess we can talk about that.
Yeah.
But historically, I was born and raised in China, and I came to undergrad in the United States, study computer science, become a product manager at Instagram and Facebook, and then started my own business.
Yeah. You grew up in China. What was it like moving to the US for Pomona College? Was it like fresh start, very America? What was it like? Yeah.
I was born in the early 90s.
Yeah.
And during my high school time, that's when undergraduate studies in the US became really popular among a certain demographic in China. So that's a new thing. So I guess I was one of the earliest cohort that went to United States for undergrad. There's a lot of Chinese people. That was quite different. It was popular. So like everyone wants to do it. But Pomona College back then was not very known. It's a liberal arts college. It was highly ranked, but it was not as popular. So I just chose it because of that year was like have a good ranking. And I was just looking at the rankings like, okay, that one seems to be good. And let's just go there. So I have no idea. I've never visited the school. I just arrived. So it was very different, obviously. The school is very small. And I did not really started to study computer science. Initially, I was an economics major. I did not want to study computer science. But then I had an internship at Atlassian. Back then, it was a really small startup called Atlassian in San Francisco. I got an internship. That's the only tech internship that I got. And then that turns out to be a great experience. And Atlassian became a giant company. Now, like, I think 30, 40 billion market cap now. So it was quite a journey that makes me realize I want to do tech. And that's how I get into tech.
Yeah, amazing. And so what was it like doing your early tech career? Like, what did you learn? What did you learn not to do?
So I joined Facebook right after college as a product manager. So back then it was a popular, it was a small program, but it was very popular where you can graduate from undergrad, no work experience, became a product manager immediately, but you rotate across different teams within Facebook and Instagram to learn. And then you can become a regular product manager on a dedicated team. So that's the kind of program that I joined. So I became a product manager really young when I was 22. It was very different back then. It was a small company still compared to right now at Facebook. Maybe there was like a few hundred product managers. So it was quite early. I was also in Instagram very early in 2016. It was back then it was like at maybe 20, 30 p.m. So it was a very interesting adventure where there's a lot of very young people in Facebook and Instagram. Things move really fast compared to right now. You can make a lot of impact. So that's when I realized there's a lot of people, then they quit Facebook and Instagram, start companies. There are also other people who Facebook acquired, who run companies. So I was like, that's really cool. I want to be like them. And that's how I really decided to be an entrepreneur after Facebook, Instagram.
Along the way to become entrepreneurial, you went on to do your Stanford MBA. So did you know you wanted to be a founder before you joined your GSB MBA, or did you do your MBA because you wanted to be entrepreneurial?
That's a good question. So I applied for Stanford MBA when I was in college.
Oh, okay.
There's a special program where you can apply.
The early admission program.
Yeah, exactly. So I got in when I was a senior in college. Maybe like 20, 25 people got in. But then the idea is that you need to have some work experience. So then I went to work at Facebook and Instagram, right? But there's 3 years in, I keep deferring because I really enjoy Facebook, Instagram. And Stanford one day is like, you gotta go. Where are you not? So that's when I decided, okay, I might as well check it out. So I quit Facebook 3 years in, and then I went to Stanford. So it was not something that I seriously considered, I need an MBA to start my own company. It was more just like, that sounds fun, let's apply. And then I just luckily got in.
Sounds a bit similar to me. I also did an early 2+2 for Harvard for my MBA. Because the difference is that I went off, I was also building my first business, which was social enterprise. And then I went to do Bain Consulting.
Oh, nice.
So you went off to Stanford, and what's interesting is that you obviously were at Stanford, and what was your experience like during Stanford? Because you said that you eventually dropped out to run a business. For myself, I was a half MBA. I also ran a business.
You didn't drop out.
I didn't drop out. But I think the difference was mine was before the pandemic as well.
That's
so,
true.
So I'm curious, what was your experience like?
Well, so I really enjoyed my Stanford experience. I only stayed for the first year. So the key catch is Facebook, I only know tech people. I only know big tech people. So for me, I was realizing that I was very fixated in the Facebook mindset that I became like less creative. So it was like a great time to rewind a little bit. So when I went to Stanford, there's a lot of different kind of classmates who studied different things. Some of them work in agriculture, some of them were running politics for some senators. So it was a very different experience that I feel like I really get a lot of exposure. But then I obviously start exploring many different startup ideas, but most of them didn't work out. The first year, I keep trying new ideas, didn't work out. Then during the summer, instead of getting an internship, which most MBA students do, I decided to try another idea, give it one more try. So I started a virtual events business back then where we run virtual events, and then we sell tickets. So we were the event organizer because at that time, my mom from China just attended a conference in the US. But it's a pain in the ass for her to get visa, to travel all of the way. So it was like, I'm thinking, what if we can have this conference online? So then she doesn't need to travel that much. So that's when we start running our own events. And we made quite a lot of money during the summer. And then at that time I had a co-founder and she was at Facebook still. So we ended up getting some venture capital money from Andreessen in the summer. So I was like, okay, now I have term sheet from Andreessen. Probably it's now time to quit. So I just decided to quit. So it was not like we get nothing. We do have some traction. That kind of convinced me to quit.
Yeah, amazing. And I thought what was interesting is that you made that decision to drop out. Was it a big decision? Was it a no-brainer? Because a lot of people, they're in that position. Hey, I want to be entrepreneurial. I want to do an MBA. What if I have to drop out? What do you think?
My parents don't think that's a good idea. For sure. My Asian parents, obviously. But at that time, I realized that I don't really need MBA to get a career in tech. Because I was lucky enough to work at Facebook, so I can always go back to big tech. So the risk was not that high. And also, I was not the first one. In my class, there are 12 people dropping out. I think 11 before me. So I'm the 12th. So I was not even that cool. It was like, back then, at least during my year, it was quite popular. There's a lot of people who quit, mostly starting companies. And they're doing quite well. So, but then obviously after that, it was COVID. So I didn't miss much because the second year would have done remotely anyways.
Exactly.
But at that time, it was popular to quit. I was it. Right now, I heard it's not as popular, but I think now it's getting more popular with AI. So more people are quitting to start AI companies again. It's a cycle,
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in Harvard, we used to say like the only thing cooler than a Harvard graduate is a Harvard dropout. But I was too chicken to do it. I was like, I can't disappoint my parents. I better work on my startup for my second year. But I was a very bad student. So I was like, get a startup. And I think what's interesting is that obviously you built this virtual events business, and I think it was like right timing for that COVID. So could you share a little bit more, because the product market fit started coming about before pandemic, but really took off. So how do you feel about that?
I'm not sure if the product market was like fully there, but back then we were an event organizer. We run events, and we realized people are not only enjoying virtual events, but also paying for all those events. So we thought it would be interesting if we can scalably enable more people to run virtual events. Back then, obviously, we didn't predict COVID. So it was end of 2019. We raised some money from Andreessen. We started building the software. And so February 2020 is when we launched the software. There's a TechCrunch article about us like coming out of stealth and launching our product. But then back then, the day before our report was Facebook and Google canceling their developer conference because of COVID. So then we quickly changed the PR statement a little bit. We say, hey, if your conference got canceled, contact us. We'll help you run the same thing virtually. And that sentence just like blow us up. There was like hundreds of conferences coming to us every single day since then. And then it was like exploding since then. Obviously, like now more people know about us. All the big brand, they contacted us. So it was a very like crazy journey where we had maybe less than 10 people, and then I guess at the end of that year we have maybe 50 people or something. It was a crazy growth journey. Obviously, we raised more money, but then during COVID we had a great run. But after COVID, the demand was not there really as much. Right? So the company we actually had to do some layoff to make sure we were break even. So we were breaking even. But then last year, there was a buyer who are more on the traditional trade shows. They are more doing physical events. So there's a lot of synergy, and they acquired us. So I left the company last year, and I'm trying to figure out something new. And that's how I started a new company.
Yeah, totally get it. I think obviously for this, I remember reading the news about around the world. Obviously, everyone's at home.
Right. That's right.
So I think your company is one of the wave of that, like COVID pandemic. Obviously, it was not just you, right? It was education tech. It was also healthcare. Also had big booms during the pandemic. Then crypto also had.
That's right. Yes.
Zero interest rate, money printing also was pretty popular at that time as well. When you look at that whole experience, what do you think are some lessons that you learned from that run?
So I guess the first thing is for us, the market dynamic changed quite a bit. But was universally true among our industry, which I didn't know, was that event is a really high churn business. Because the frequency of events typically for a customer is once a year or twice a year. And each year they want to be different. They need to make their events cool. So they're actively trying to figure out what are the new things I can add, what are the new vendors I can look at when it comes to finding events software. That's different from another popular company, I guess, during the pandemic was the remote hiring. So for example, Deal, all of that company, and they were like our peers. We were both invested by Andreessen. So they have a different problem where their retention is by default really good because all the employees, once you set up their payroll, you're never going to change. Versus our business, we have to constantly acquire a new customer. We always get a lot of new customers. That's great because everybody come to an event, they know about us and they come to us. There's a lot of organic flow of new customer, but there's always an organic churn of existing customer. And then because the frequency of usage is not really high. So we constantly have to sell new customer, making sure we sell more, then we'll be churn in order to be growing. Versus like Deal, you don't churn. So that is the nature of the event business. When you look at the event business, there's not many large public companies because of that nature. And the number one company actually got there because they acquired 20 other companies. So that's the nature of our industry, which I didn't really understand. So that's number one. Number two is that obviously we hire a lot of people. Back then it was cool to hire more people. Now it's the opposite, right? Now it's like mid-journey. Okay, you have 20 people making 200 million. That's cool. So it's the opposite. But back then it was cool to hire more people. And all of our competitors hire more people. So we ended up hiring so many people that we don't really think maybe we need, but just because everyone else is hiring more people, we feel like we had to. And that obviously means we need to hire mid-tier manager to manage those people. We need to establish processes, which actually makes things slow quite a bit. And then you also have to pay recruiting firms tons of money. But then when the market changed, we realized, we probably need to make some shift. It was quite painful to lay off a bunch of people. And now we call this like ZIRP company now, ZIRP, for zero interest rate company in Silicon Valley. And there's even more layoff among like other companies right now. So it was quite painful to hire that many people and fire that many people. And now I'm doing AI. I learned from the Mid-Journey playbook, maybe don't hire as many people. Don't really hire until you really need to, which is the opposite from my previous practitioner philosophy.
I totally agree with you. I was also building a company around that time frame, and I think people are very focused on more growth.
That's right.
Buying growth, actually, to be exact. How do you think about that? Because when we have raised from kind of like Series A, VCs, growth stage capital, what do you think some of the dynamics at the board level? Because there's always that debate, right? Which is, what's the right growth rate? You raise capital, you need to raise a certain growth rate. How do you think about managing or discussing with the board about that?
I see, but I think that obviously the board changed their opinion quite a bit, right?
That's also true about me as well.
During the COVID time, everybody thinks the party is going to continue. So it's important that you win, because if you don't grow, other company will grow and then you suck. So I think the dynamic was different. It was actually not controversial to hire more. It was very controversial if you don't hire more.
Correct.
But now I think that the dynamic changed quite a bit, which I feel like, I don't know, can I avoid that? Can I avoid? Could I avoid hiring more people? Looking back, maybe that was the right thing to do because the market was doing well. There's a lot of demand. And obviously we didn't expect COVID to end the party. We thought even if COVID were to end, people would still continue running their events virtually. I think that's something maybe we believe, which we were not right. We were wrong. But I think the dynamic here that we should have caught earlier, which is the event business, is a high churn business. We should have known that earlier. Maybe figure out ways to lock in the customer with multi-year contract, or figure out ways where we can acquire customer fast. That was not something I guess I realized looking back. Because I always work Facebook, Instagram, by default, people are retained. Right? But that's very different dynamic from the event business, which turns out to be high churn, and it was a pain in the ass to deal with high churn business.
I think the big thing that I realized as well, from my perspective, was that it was also the age of blitzscale, right? So it was very popular around that time frame. And like you said, I think the market changed as well. I think, like you said, the pandemic was two changes, right? One was we expected food to continue for a long time, but we didn't expect vaccines to come up so fast. And the second thing is you didn't expect the virtual business to people return back to in-person very aggressively as well. So when you think about that, there was also other companies that are also doing that, right? So I angel invested in OnDeck, right?
Oh, cool.
And then OnDeck also was part of that virtual programming, virtual communities.
That's right.
Everybody's going to stay in the virtual community. And then after that, they've decided that they wanted to focus on in-person programming.
Was it because of the same problem, right?
Similar problem as well, because people want to do in person, especially after spending 2 to 3 years. They're like, you know what, I just don't want to do another webinar. I don't want to do another virtual Slack community. I want to be in person. So if you were like thinking about an events business today, or at least that component, how would you think about communities or organizing?
I think the community is still very important. I do think virtual events could work. I think the number one problem is that I thought, we could provide a similar experience that makes people feel connected with existing technology. But maybe the effect, the efficacy is not as good. Hopefully Vision Pro and Facebook's like Oculus, all of that stuff, could really makes you feel that you're together. But so far we haven't been successfully exactly replicate the level of a bar meetup. And hugging, that was not fully there. We think that is the number one reason. If you don't feel as connected virtually because you're bounded by Zoom calls, whatever, then that is not as effective. But if you can truly make it as effective, I do believe the virtual events could work. I think it's more, with the technology we had, which is more focusing on Zoom and live stream, it failed to achieve the same level of connection. But I do think that's popular. I do think it's possible with Vision Pro and all of the other stuff. The next generation tech, I think it's possible. So that's something I guess I learned. It was the efficacy of connection failed to match people's level in person. That makes this not as cool after pandemic, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I think on that note, you decided to take some time out after starting the company. So what were you doing during that time? Were you reading books?
Actually, I didn't take that much time out. We were obviously spending a lot of time negotiating deals with the acquirer. That took quite a while.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And then I guess maybe I took a few months off. And then I was obviously learning about AI because my previous company was some AI, but it was not dominant AI. So I had to learn some new stuff. So it's mostly just trying to learn AI for a few months and stuff. And I've always wanted to start in a company where, when I was young, I really like to make paper planes that can do flips. When you throw away, it flips back to you, right?
Wow, that's cool.
I think it's really cool.
Trick.
Right? I think it's very cool. But obviously, I want to improve. I want to do cooler tricks. And I don't think my parents at that time, they were supportive, but they don't know how to help me because that ended up requiring a lot of aerodynamic knowledge. Back then, there was a very popular anime called Doraemon. I don't know if you know that.
One?
Yeah,
the
Doraemon.
Japanese,
yes, the cat,
boy,
right? And then I was like, oh, if I had him, he would have told me how to do this, right? But then he doesn't exist. So when I was learning AI, I realized last year, I was like, dude, it is possible to actually have a Doraemon that can help you learn anything you want. They can be the best friend and companion. They really can be educational as well. Right. So, and then my parents also, my mom is a pediatrician, and my mother-in-law is a children's book author in the US. So I guess I have some special benefit or special resource in the kids space, which makes me want to build a modern day Doraemon using AI for all kids, 3 to 11.
Yeah, that's cool. Definitely. As a parent of a 4-year-old and 2-year-old girl, have watched all these AI tools come. I think my kid is really asking us like, hey, Google, play Wheels on a Bus, right? For the song. When you think about this, what do you think is, first of all, what do you think is the future for, say, Generation Alpha and AI and children's toys like that nexus?
So the interesting thing is when we do a lot of research, the kids will play with it, right? They think it's cool. But they don't think it's so mind-blowingly cool. They're shocked by it. They're not. They're just like, oh, this is cool. This dinosaur is cool too. So they just think it's so normal. That's number one thing. Is like when we saw AI, it was like, oh my God, holy shit. But the kids are not like that. They're just like, this is cool. I'm gonna use it. So
it's normal.
It's normal, right? That's growing up. And when I have a computer, it was quite normal in my generation. But now it's very normal to have AI. So I think it's the receptance of the kid. You don't really need to train them to do much. They're very naturally picking up how to use AI. So that's number one. Number two is obviously there are safety concerns and how you can make sure the AI is safe and responsible for kids. I think ChatGPT is doing a good job when it comes to, I want to kill somebody, oh, that's a bad thing to do. I want to burn the house, oh, that's, maybe you shouldn't do that. ChatGPT is good at that, but there's higher bar when it comes to kid. For example, we have like virtual panda or dinosaur you can design, right? And they talk to you and they help you learn things. Sometimes they ask the kid, what do you have for breakfast? And the kids like to be a little troll. They're like, I like black coffee. I want to have coffee. And apparently that's not good for the kid. So it's important that we guide them, hey, how about we try hot chocolate? Caffeine may be bad for you. So there's a higher bar when it comes to safety, when it comes to kids. So we have we had to have in-house, that's when we realized we have to have in-house psychologists and child educators that really know, they have taste on what is good, what is not good. And they can really hold the line for us. So that's important. And then the most important thing for when it comes to kids and AI is when adults are using AI, I guess the AI is assumed that you're a sane human. You know how to give them demand, AI answers your demand. But kids are different. Number one is that kids are different in different age. So when you're 3, you talk in different ways. When you're 5, then when you're 8, then when you're 9. So AI literally needs to match up with your cognitive level. As you grow your brain and you can do more things, you can accept more abstract concept. AI needs to be able to keep it up instead of being boring and not providing a stimulating environments. So again, we need expertise. We need to understand what is the cognitive level for this age, for that age, and how do we make sure that AI can grow with the kid as the kids grow older? How do we know they're gaining more skills? How do we match the AI's capability with the kids' capabilities? That's something that we have to build in as well. So that's another thing we can have leveraging our expert to build. So safety, responsibility, age appropriateness. And then you need to make everything interesting. So I would give you an interesting anecdote. So the idea is that we initially have AI characters, a cartoon. They talk to you and they read to you and they play game with you, so you're learning. But we thought we can design a tiger where all the kids like, right? So we designed a tiger. We quickly realized that if the kids don't like the tiger, they just wouldn't use the app. No matter how helpful Tiger is, no matter how many skills Tiger can pull, they don't like Tiger, they back off.
Right.
But then the problem is that we couldn't find one character what all the kids love, and that's quite hard. Because sometimes the kid like pirates, sometimes the kid like whatever dinosaur. So we realized that when they like a character, even if you tell them to eat more vegetables, to sleep early, they will listen better. Right. So ended up having ability where kids can design their own character, because we realized that if the kids like the character, they will listen whatever the character said. Right. If your parents are like, oh, you have to study, the kid's not going to listen to that. But if the character, Doraemon or whatever, some anime things, then like, oh, I studied this. Look, I have the superpower because of that. And then the kids actually listen. So there's a better adherence to educational outcome when they like the character. Yeah. That's very interesting as well. Yeah.
I think what's interesting is that a lot of user insights here. From a parent's perspective, is all those things, but there's also like a fear, which is I'm delegating my parenting authority because I want to teach my kid certain values, right? And also, I think on the other end, we also know that AI today is based on Western data primarily, right? ChatGPT and all these folks are primarily using Western sources of data, so Western, educated, industrialized. I think it's weird for the R&D in the, they call it weird, right? The data, but there's a certain kind of like training material they had around those norms, right? If that makes sense. Whereas as a parent, you might have different norms, which is, for example, I want my kid to be more Confucian. So there's a different approach. And then sometimes parents can have different beliefs, right? Or maybe if you're sick, some parents are like, no antibiotics ever. We want you to always tough it out, etc. So there's a little bit of parental variation on the, you can call it ethics, but also norms.
Right.
There's different
values.
Values, right?
Yeah, totally.
So how do you adjust for that from your perspective? Yeah.
So I entirely agree with you. I think even among Western community, like the US, they're different too.
Oh,
there's liberal, there's conservative, there's LGBT. They're different, and they don't talk to each other, and they don't agree with each other. So we realized that we really need to have a gamified, we have a personalized gamified engine. So the idea is that parents can design their own educational games.
Right.
So if I want my kid to learn Chinese culture in this particular way, I can design a game around that. Or, oh, I have a family heritage of Irish, whatever, and then we believe in this. Growing up, I'm from Shandong province in China. Oh, yeah. We really believe in family. Family is a huge thing. So there's a lot of family value. That's actually the city of Confucius, where Confucius is from my province. So we couldn't be more Confucius. We couldn't be more Confucius.
You might even be related to Confucius.
I know. So essentially, my parents have a lot of Confucius belief that they want me to learn. And they want me to learn all the Chengyu, all the stuff.
Chinese idioms,
so the idea is you can basically create stories and you can create games around those Chengyu. So that's what we have. Because we realize that we don't want the AI to dictate how our kids are learning. We don't want an expert dictate the value that the kids have. Ultimately, is the responsibility and the power of the parents. Some parents want the kids to focus more on family, like my family. But my husband is a Jewish white male in the US. I think they're not as close from a family value perspective, just because American maybe culture is not as close. So their story is more focusing on sci-fi, like imagination, creativity, where my parents growing up, they teach me a lot of story about happy family, all of that. So I do think we want to be able to support all of those. And then also just within the US, for example, there's different religion. And then within even in the Bible community, there's different kind of school of Bible. Of course. So it's a very subtle thing that we realize that we don't want, as a platform, we don't want to be telling people which version of the Bible is the right Bible. We want the parents to decide, hey, I want my kids to focus on this version of Bible, in this particular way.
Yeah, and I was also running an education tech startup, right? That was VC funded. And one of the things that we realized was that the two spouses may not even agree.
I know. I know.
So we have one case, the husband said one thing, the wife said the other thing, then they both complained to us. And then we're like, wait, the instruction was from the other partner, right? And
That's
then
right.
They had to take it offline, talk to each other first.
Yeah, so in our example, that would be the dad maybe creating a story based on his value, the mom creating a games based on her value, and they can put it into the kids like collection and then let the kids do it. We figure out that's probably the best way. Is instead of saying I'm standing up, like if I'm saying I'm right, then I piss off both parents. So it's better to not say this is what's right. But there are obviously, I think, universal belief. We all believe in studying hard, working hard. We all believe in being kind to people and being generous. I think that's universal belief. But when it comes to family versus not family, like what is even feminism or like gender, they're different. And gender norm, all of that stuff is quite different. So we want to make sure that we match different cultures. We're actually, what we find is that because it's now easy to create multiple languages, right? Because text-to-speech technology as well as LLM, we have around 30 languages. We are already in 100 countries, and people are just using it differently. They talk in different topics. It's very easy to be an international company from day one as AI company, just because all of the language capability is there. So you have to figure out those customization when it comes to value from day one, which is normally in the Facebook days, you focus on the US and you don't worry about anything else. But for us, we do want to, obviously we're focusing on US first, but we're realizing there's a lot of Asian population that are using it, there's Brazilian using it. So you need to have certain tools for them to customize in their own way. So we have that early, which is different from last generation of tech companies.
I think when you think about, obviously, product design, obviously people have always done education, right? So there's some form of focus orientation, which is your math, your verbals. Then there's also your school standards, right? Which is your graduation, getting to a good university. Now, obviously, there's the civic, moral, spiritual education angle. And then obviously there's the life skills, like cooking or personal nutrition. So there's so many different domains that you have. Do you feel like there's any particular tracks that parents, who are the ultimate decision makers, obviously here, are primarily like more focusing on?
I think among Asian population, there's a huge need for English learning, English practice. Talking to Panda every day in English helps you become successful. And that's something we see in, for example, in China, in even I think a little bit in Singapore, but in a lot of like European countries, they practice English quite a bit. And then I think among U.S. population, one is more social emotional learning is a popular concept right now, which is more about learning to cook. It's also about, let's say, if I don't want to share my toys, what do I say to kids? What do I say to other kids? Or
buzz off,
right? And then how do you basically reject other people? What if you're sad? How do you make sure you can handle how do you grieve? So there's a new belief system in, especially among, I think, elites in the U.S., where a lot of the private schools start to incorporating like social emotional learning for kids to be more successful at handling their emotions, at communicating with other people. So they expect they expect Panda to role play with the kid. Assuming Panda wants a toy and the kid doesn't like to share, what will they say? So there's more angles on social emotional learning. There's another aspect we're seeing universally true, which is more on STEM, so math and science. And how do you make sure kids are interested in that? So when the kids ask a question, why is the sky blue? Can you incorporate some science concept that makes them interested? So that is universal, I think, among all the country. But right now, we'll be really focusing on social emotional learning as well as English, because naturally, those are more conversational type of use cases. We're also reading quite a bit because AI can help us design books and design like stories, whether it's the parents create those stories, the kids can learn, or as a teacher can create a story based on I want the kids to learn those 3 vocabulary terms, and how do I make a story about it? So if I want the kids to learn 5 words, but the kids also like dinosaur, can I create a book about dinosaur? Using those 5 words, the kids can learn. So there's a lot of interest in helping the kids read better and read more in an interesting way, where we think AI can do a really good job creating customized content. So it's reading, language learning, social emotional. Those have been something that we've been focusing on. But the other part is also creativity. That's relatively new. But more people realizing, okay, with ChatGPT taking out, knowing all the knowledge, taking over a lot of the job, what is the core value or skills that would be so rare that you won't be replaced by ChatGPT? And many people believe it's creativity. And so the idea is that you want the kids to use AI to create more instead of being replaced by AI, right? So that's a new thing. I think I'm expecting to see more creativity-driven curriculum moving forward as well.
Awesome. So my last question here would be, could you share a personal story about time that you have been brave
Yes, I guess the very interesting thing is I was an economics major. The first computer science class I took, I actually failed at it. It was too hard for me because I'm never taking any class like that. So actually, back in my college, when you're not doing well, you can choose to drop that class and not take it, and that wouldn't be in your transcript. So I actually dropped that class. That's the first year in college. I was like, oh, that's too hard. But then I got an internship at Atlassian as a marketing intern. Realized that Atlassian was awesome, but marketing in tech company was not the coolest job, I guess, back then. The coolest job was product management, but you need to have a CS degree back then. So that's when I realized, okay, I have to pick up computer science again, even though I was failed. I failed in it. So I took a third class, the same exact class. I tried it again. I guess I didn't fail that time. And I ended up having a computer science major after junior year. And that really helps me doing all of the tech stuff. And I felt like that was something that critical. It was something that I thought I was quite brave for choosing, for trying it again. And I benefited tremendously from that brave decision.
Yeah. When you think about computer science as a domain, what was scary about it for you?
I think just back then, I never learned coding. So it was quite, maybe some other classmates in my class, they may have taking some coding classes in high school or something, so they know a little bit, and I have zero idea. I looking back, I realized the class itself maybe was not that difficult. It's more just all the other kids are better than me, and I was always the best kid. So maybe that was something that does not help with my ego quite a bit. I think it's more that makes me feel like, oh my God, I suck at this, and all the other kids are so great. I'm never gonna be able to catch up with them, and that makes me want to quit the first time. But I guess now I learned starting companies and all of that stuff it's okay if the first time you're not successful. You can always try it again. Maybe try it again, and that could work. So I think that changed my belief in trying as well.
On that note, thank you so much for sharing. Let me summarize the 3 big takeaways. First of all, thank you so much for sharing about what's it like to grow up in China, but also to move to America and explore, obviously, computer science and your early college career and how you got that pivotal experience at Atlassian. Secondly, thanks for sharing about your experience building around the world and how that COVID pandemic refueled it, but also how you dropped out of Stanford as well. Lastly, thanks so much for sharing about what your beliefs are around kind of AI, education, the future for Generation Alpha.
Yes.
And I'm pretty sure that my children will be interacting with your product in time to come as well.
Please let me know.
Yeah.
I think the 4-year-old is good enough.
Yeah, exactly. 2-year-old is still learning how to. Actually, a 2-year-old is more into technology than a 4-year-old.
Oh, really? Oh, that's
cool. We'll see how it goes. On that note, thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you so much.